your story born in the New York,
Yes.
and in New York you play different music.
Yes.
What kind of music you play?
When I was a kid, I grew up in a neighborhood in New York City called the Lower East Side that was very important in the punk world, in the hip hop world, and in the salsa world. Because many people lived and created art and music in this particular neighborhood when I was a kid. So I was exposed to all three things. When I was a teenager, I was a big fan of hip hop, and then later on I got into punk rock and post-punk bands. So I've always tried to investigate different sounds and basically.
So you in the first time don't play Afrobeat music. When born this love for Afrobeat music?
Afrobeat, my love for Afrobeat, the first time I heard Fela was in 1992. I had a record label, an independent punk label in New York, and we had a recording studio. And at that time, I used to produce a group called King Chango. We played Latin ska, and we were on David Byrne from the Talking Heads, his label Luaka Bob. And at that time, I met Gabe Roth from Sharon Jones and the Dab Kings, and he was just a student at the New York University. He was studying sound engineering, and he lived around the corner from the studio. And one time he was playing a Fela album called A Black Man's Cry, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was very boring because I really liked ska and pumping music, and I thought, well, it's very long, and so it took a while. It took for me about I would say about 7 years for my ears to mature, because to hear, understand the genius of the Afro-West African sound, the West African funk.
The Fela style.
The Fela style, yes. And so once I went back and I listened to Fela, it was a new understanding. It's almost like if you have a French book in your house, but you don't speak French.
Yes, I do.
Then you learn to speak French, and then you read the book, and you're like, oh, wow, this is okay. So that's how it happened. And after that, then I really understood how beautiful and complex the rhythms were, and the beauty of the jazz elements, the saxophones, the voices, everything combining into a very...
Because before you don't use saxophone or other...
Never. I never used
only guitar,
drum and bass.
Okay.
Old school guitar, drum and bass.
And you singing?
Yeah. So.
But you play also the guitar.
Yes. But no, never played with a horn. Never played keyboards. Never played with percussion. Never had backup girl singers and stuff. So it was, for me, I saw it as a challenge, because I wanted to develop and challenge myself into something, a new sound that was more complex, that was more demanding, and see if I could actually do it. Because the other stuff, Dan and Ramon stuff, that's easier.
So in the second time of your musical life, you love the Afrobeat,
yes.
And in particular way the sound of Nigeria, I think, or
yes.
other country of Africa?
Mostly Nigeria, but I also love a lot of music from Mali, Ghana, some Zaire music, and obviously from Senegal, Orchestra Baobab. I think one of the things that I discovered when I first began this music is, this band, eventually we got the opportunity to play in very important places. We've been to 28 countries, and I managed to meet a lot of my heroes, my musical heroes, whether Africa 70, Seun Kuti, Femi, Tony Allen. And to me it was very surprising and enthusiastic that they understood Kokolo, because when they were little kids, they loved the Latin sound. You understand?
Yes.
So, for instance, when we played, the first time we played with Seun Kuti in Sète in France, the whole band came backstage, and they were like, wow, we love it, because they knew Johnny Pacheco, they knew the Fanian All-Stars, they love Willie Colon, they know Hector Lavoe, they love Celia Cruz.
Because in effect, you this love for African music, in particular way of Nigerian music with the Afrobeat of Fela Kuti, and you, I know, love also the Latin music, because this music is live in your city, in New York City, and for this reason you know this music.
Exactly. Yeah.
How is it?
Well, it's a music that informed me a lot. There are people that really inspired me, and when we began the group, I wanted to do something original, because, as you know, New York City is known for groups that do their own representation. They bring their own flavor. And in discovering Fela, I realized how he had been very influenced by people like James Brown, a lot of people like Stevie Wonder, the politics of Malcolm X. But what Fela did was he turned it into his own identity.
Yes,
By
yes.
bringing in Nigerian culture, Yoruba, the language, the rhythms. He created his own thing. And so what I decided to do early on was bring my own experience as someone from New York City. So through my eyes. And
So for this reason, you love also the work of a band like Funny All Star and
Exactly.
all Latin music.
Exactly. And I wanted to bring two cultures because these cultures knew of each other.
Yeah, because your work is some different from many bands who play only strictly Afrobeat.
Mm-hmm.
You put many influence in your records, like in the third album.
Yes, exactly. And for me, it was a bit difficult in the beginning because the critics criticized the band Kokolo and myself very much. They said, "Oh, what is this? Afro with Latin," and to me it was very funny because when I did meet Egypt 80, they knew about it. They were like, "We love it. We love the Afro-Cuban sound. We love the sound of New York. We know
It's
all
a
these
mix
guys."
for a new style of
Exactly.
Afro music,
Exactly.
or style of Afro
Exactly.
music.
Exactly. To me, it's the sound of unity. It's the sound of, come in and we're going to mesh this sound of people, of perspectives, of realities into a sound that brings people up, that has force.
But in this ultimate work for you, Ivy Asling, you dedicate the album only to the grandfather, James Brown. Of course. Is more important Fela for you or James?
Well, I got to admit that as a child, James was very, very strong influence in all of the United States, especially for me as a kid, because James Brown, without James Brown, they wouldn't have been Afrobeat. Without James Brown, they wouldn't be disco, house, drum and bass, funk, hip hop. I mean, on and on and on. What he had invented, and the way that he spoke to people like me as a kid from New York City. When we would listen to his radio show, when he would play on the radio, it was fantastic. What I wanted to do was with Heavy Hustling was go back to the actual root, because although Fela is the godfather of Afrobeat, he himself had to recognize that someone like James Brown had gone before. And at the time that I began the idea of doing Heavy Hustling was at the time when James Brown died. And I went to see him at the Apollo. They laid him there for people to see. And I was very moved because I had always, my earliest memories was of black music, of listening to his music, the sound, and people who were influenced by him later on. Okay. Whether it was the Commodores, whether it was BT Express,
all the funk scene
that came after. Yeah, we were really into that. Shalimar, a lot of people. And to see him there, I was very moved. And at that time, I wanted to do something special in homage of the Godfather. Okay. Again, through my own perspective.